Question number one. So we're jumping in the off season. We know that we're talking about weight room here. So the question here is, what is the importance of using the weight room? Why? Why? I just came from a school that maybe we didn't have the best weight room, and pitching it to the admin to get a better one by driving around to everyone else in our district and taking pictures of their, I don't know, 10 times larger than our weight room wasn't enough because it wasn't a necessity. So why do we need the weight room?
And I don't know that you have to have anything really special as far as equipment. Um, you can probably do some fundraising. Now, I think equipment is up in price, but we got by at a small school with 3 squat racks, 3 benches. One of those squat racks came out of my basement from my house that I grew up in, and it's still there. I never took it back. It's
Yeah.
now property of that high school that I don't work for anymore. I had to sell the leg press machine. I think it ended up getting scrapped. I didn't get a dime out of it. They had some dumbbells, but I had to get rid of a lot of equipment just to get enough space to use the floor because it looked like a 70s Nautilus gym.
That's the good ones.
The obvious is that you need a weight room because everybody else has one, and you need to get in the weight room to build bigger players, stronger players, more explosive players. But I've coached some teams that weren't weight room teams. We got manhandled by some teams, but we still managed to hang in there. You can get around it. But it's a heck of is it a necessity? Probably if you want to win a championship, yeah. But if you want to be competitive, nah. You can do a lot outside of it. But just there is no other way. I am convinced that there's no better way, and I say that like other people are going to argue, to build all of the things that you need in your football team. What you really need is the young guys getting in the weight room early and starting to establish that. I think that one of the things you don't get from doing a bunch of push-ups and the Herschel Walker workout, right? The, dragging tires. Why do we need a weight room? Herschel Walker just drug tires. Well, first of all, Herschel Walker, and then look at the guys you got.
Yeah, genetics are kind of a thing.
I watched Herschel
Science
Walker.
teacher, I can teach you.
I watched Herschel Walker at 50 years old in a strike force fight. And I don't know how much fighting training he had done. I wasn't like an expert on it. I'd never seen hips like that. The way that he would manipulate his hips to drive the man down, and in a MMA type situation at 50 years old was absolutely incredible. So don't just think that you can drag tires and stuff. And more and more and more and I, maybe your wife could speak to this. We're getting guys involved in the 6th and 7th grade. It's not a 9th grade thing anymore. And we're not worried about damaging their growth plates. Now we're not loading them up. They're not maxing out, but we're doing safe weightlifting and creating the mental firings, the neurons to get them so that when they are 8th grade, they're ready to go. I just don't think that you can create the combination of speed, strength, explosiveness, and injury prevention anywhere else than with the way that we can do it in the weight room.
Yeah.
And do it as efficiently. Because okay, we're going to have them drag tires. Are you going to have 8 sets of tires out there, chains everywhere, and dragging sleds, and have 8 prowler sleds and all that kind of stuff? Almost impossible.
The kind of bulletproofing their bodies, I think, is one of the biggest deals. Yes, we want bigger, faster, stronger, right? That's been a motto for 1,000 years, but I assume I wasn't alive 1,000 years ago. But not letting the first time be the first time that any of those muscles, tendons, ligaments, whatever it is, are being put into a position. You're getting so much more, and that mental, you talked about the mental toughness, that's huge, man. Teaching someone they can be successful, right? I can remember I was a very small human being when I was in high school. That's why I was no good at football. And I'm just not that athletic. Um, and I can remember bench pressing 195 for reps, and I couldn't do 200 pounds because of the mental block. So,
Mhm.
getting kids to understand that those exist and pushing them past them, how does that not help on a football field, right? Like, yes, you can run the football.
That's
The tackles don't hurt as bad as what you think they do. Maybe they hurt you because you were a tiny ninth grader like I was, and the senior guard pulled and kicked you, and life wasn't good. But teaching them that to overcome those obstacles, really, it's the resiliency you can build, that mental toughness. So I don't
the
know.
probably told the story on this podcast before because one of the most I learned the most about strength training from this person, and not from a lift standpoint, but early on, not different than Chris Lawyer who does JDFB weight room, but this was the strength coach at Parkview High School in Atlanta. Jeff Francoeur was I believe he was all state as a quarterback. I know he was supposed to go to Clemson. And Francoeur, of course, ended up playing pro baseball for a long time and still announcer for the Braves. Um, and he talked about, Francoeur hit a 315 power clean the day that he went out and I believe pitched a no hitter and then hit 4 home runs in a doubleheader for the state championship game for Parkview, some crazy number like that. But that was the first time I heard somebody talking about lifting on game day and how this is not this taboo thing that we can never do. Now I don't know if I would have a max power clean, but it's not necessary. But again, it was just so he had this thing that they did, and this is 15 years ago. I used to do it. I wouldn't do it anymore. It was called Jailhouse Rules. It was a funny name for it, but the point was they had mirrors all over the weight room, and once a week or every 2 weeks or whatever during the accessory lifts at the end of the workout, it would be Jailhouse Rules, and that was the only time the kids were allowed to take their shirts off and lift in there. Because the kids without their shirts, it's pretty sweaty and gross. So they were allowed 1 day a week, and this was again 1 day a week, 1 day a month, or whatever. And the whole point of it was for these guys to see themselves in the mirror,
Right.
and it was that mental look at yourself lifting these weights. You know what you looked like 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, and the confidence from that for the kids seeing actually taking the time to see the changes in their body. And yeah, they can flex in front of a mirror in the bathroom, but we got great lighting in the weight room and they're lifting and they're all pumped up, so they're going to see it even better. And it's just the mental benefits of being in the weight room and the confidence that is built. When we talk about Coach Simple Play Fast Win, the confidence that comes from getting bigger and stronger is absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. I don't know if there's another place that you can build that. Like,
No, because you can't be like, I drug an extra tire today,
right.
or you just can't. You cannot create that. And also, by the way, unless you do a huge variety of exercise, um, a sprinter, for example, is going to become unbalanced and they're going to deal with hamstring pulls because they're going to become quad dominant. And this is all built in a JDFB weight room. JDFB weight room is our program is built to make sure that everything stays balanced. That's part of the injury prevention. You can't do that anywhere else.
Yeah. Even in the military, we have confidence courses, but they're really extremely tall. Number one, because everyone's afraid of heights. Most of them are tall. They're difficult. They're physically taxing, relatively safe, right? And you just go through them as a unit, and you go through these basically giant obstacle courses, and that's our confidence course. And it's the same thing, right? You put the thing in front of someone that they say they don't think they can do, and then you showed them how to do it. So it's the exact same thing here, right? You got to have that weight room.
And I think also the big mistake that one of the big things, and it's a recruiting tool for the military, is to come out to your school and put you through one of those, military training deals. And the fact is, it's going to be 1 day.
Yeah.
And I don't care how good it is; it's 1 day. This is something that is repetitive from January through. It should be from January to the day they graduate.
Right.
I mean, really. I mean, with the time you might take, I take December off, but um, all year long, this is 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever you do, 2 days a week, doesn't matter, of putting in this effort and this work. And that's where you build, that true confidence. It doesn't happen from one trip.
Yep. So we've discussed the importance of having, getting in the weight room in the first place. So let's kind of talk the organization of what you're doing in there now. So why do we need that weight room program? Well, I know we talk systems a lot, and we're probably going to rehash a ton of that. So why do we need a program or a system in the weight room?
I think one of the biggest things is that the old way of doing it, and I did this for a while too, was you come in and you're like, we need to work on bench, or like, wait, hey, coach, what do we work on Monday? Oh, we did legs. Okay, today's going to be upper body. So there's like instinctive programming. It's not a real thing. You would not plan. I mean, just go to a game plan. Now, plenty of coaches are doing this wrong too. So let me explain why it's wrong. Your game plan creates what goes on your call sheet. And then what goes on your call sheet, what is in your game plan, the things that you are going to call on Friday night creates your practice plan. It creates within your practice plan the indie drills that you will focus on, the group drills that you will focus on, the scripts that you will use in group, the scripts that you will use in team. So you start with the end in mind. We all start with the end in mind during the season, right? We're going to win a championship. We're going to make playoffs. Whatever the goal is. None of us start the season without a goal, a team that we need to beat. Or at the very least, your goal is to win week 1. At the very least, you have that. And then the goal is to win, even if your goal is just to go 1-0 every week, that's perfectly fine. You start with the end in mind. That doesn't work in weightlifting. The goal can't be to go 1-0 in weightlifting this week. There's no score.
Right.
So in order to have a successful weight room, you must start with an end in mind, which is, where do we want to be? We want to be stronger. Cool. Like, what does that mean? We want to have everybody have a 400-pound squat. Great. That's not going to happen. But it's a nice goal. At least but so then, are you going to focus on squats? Okay. Are you going to focus on squats for 6 months? Then you're going to end up quad down, or you're going to end up overtrained in one area, undertrained in another, which is going to create an injury situation.
Right.
The goal is to be great athletes to be stronger, more explosive, more powerful, and less likely to be injured athletes. And that is the goal. And so then you create a program that makes that happen. And that program is however long, and it's 24 weeks, by the way, to get you ready for that point in time, to get you to that point. You must start with the end in mind. And that requires working backwards and creating a program to get where you want to be. And you can't simply be instinctive and accomplish all that, because you will get focused on one thing or another and drift off this way, and then you'll come back this way, and oh man, we haven't squatted in 3 weeks, and whoops, and oh, we haven't done this, or we should try this because I saw it in a YouTube video. And you're going to have a pretty crappy off season. It's just going to be disjointed and disorganized. And so you've got to have that plan. You've got to have a plan for the number of days that you're going to be in there. And I think a lot of coaches go in and say, we're going to go 4 days a week because that's how many days it takes. That is not true. And you have to look at that and say, do we have attendance falling off? I get a lot of coaches who are like, we go 5 days a week, but only have four kids in there every day. And I'm like, well, what do you do those 5 days a week? Well, we do circuit or something like that. It's like, what the hell? It's not going to work. Kids hate it. They're like, you have to adapt. You have to get your kids in the door. Um, we have found that 3 days a week is kind of the sweet spot,
Yeah.
because we get the work done that we need to get done. We're producing better football players, and we're getting great attendance. Um, and that takes time, by the way. You don't just open the doors and say, weight room's open and have 100 kids walk in. You're in a program that doesn't have an established weight room. Part of the planning is, how do I get these first 5 kids in there? How do I get it to 10? How do I get it to 12, to 15? Um, and that takes time and it takes work. But how many days a week are you going to go? How long are you going to go? If your workouts are all 2.5 hours, you're going to have poor attendance. If your workouts are high paced, high energy, but not killing the kids, right? High paced, high energy, but not going until total exhaustion, and then producing results in a relatively short amount of time, your kids are going to like it because they know they're getting out of there and they know they're getting results.
Right.
Look, kids are like little humans, or like not quite. Some of them aren't that little. They want to see results without effort, without time. And we have to trick them into putting in that effort, which may mean doing it in a short amount of time. But you've got to have a plan that's going to produce results. It's just so many people out there without a plan.
Yep.
And you don't have the Malcolm Gladwell, right? 10,000 hours to be an expert. Okay. It's impossible for you to be a football coach who works 40 hours a week on football, plus has a 40-hour a week teaching job, to also put in 40 hours a week on strength training. There are way too many guys. I will include myself. I spent a lot of years in the weight room. I'm pretty close. I'm probably over the 1,000 hours now, or 10,000 hours now. But back when I was much younger, I thought that I was a weightlifting expert, and I had lifted weights and I was good at it, but I wasn't an expert in programming and getting other guys. And you will get away with it. The worst part of all of this is, so the one thing is, I don't think that we can be expert football coaches and expert strength trainers. I just don't. You can be a good football coach and a good strength trainer, maybe. You may be great at one and okay at the other, but eventually one gets neglected, and without a doubt, you just can't put in the hours for it.
Yep.
Maybe if you've been coaching and doing that stuff for 50 years, maybe you figured it out. I don't know. That's Most of us haven't. Most of us 5 years in, and we think we're an expert at everything, and you're not an expert at anything. The problem is, and this is the worst thing. So we talk about, you need to have a plan. And if you don't think you need to have a plan, or if you think that your thing is working, here's one thing to remember. We're coaching high school boys. Testosterone fueled little freaks. Most of them can look at a weight and get stronger, grow. This is the easiest group of people to train. Now, it's also easy to screw them up and not realize it, because it'll take a while to manifest, and also because you just can't even see it. Like, they're just getting stronger and they don't even know it. They don't even know what's wrong. And then you see it in the season. And now you got guys hurting this and that. Just because you get results doesn't mean you have a great program. There's more, and I found that out because I did my own programming for years, and then I trained a group with a program from a strength expert who knew how to begin with the end in mind and actually write out 24 weeks of programming that got us somewhere, and then 16 more weeks of programming that not only maintained but continued to improve through the season. And night and day, absolute night and day. 73% difference, by the way, just for numbers. You've got to have a program. You can't just sit there and wing it. And even if you write it out, are you going to put the amount of thought into it? That's the hard part. You've got to sit down, and this has got to be like a week-long project. My program is written by an expert. He writes programming all the time. It took him months to put this together. and he pores over every little detail, every little rep. This is all he has to do. And this is his job. He's got 40,000 hours, 50,000 hours. And you're just going to sit down and be like, this is what we're doing this week. Or walk in and like grab a pen and write something up on the way, write up on the whiteboard. That's what everybody does. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You must have a better plan than that.
I think the something. So we used JDFB weight room last year at Stillwell, and what I immediately understood or recognized was the organization led to obviously efficiency. Right, you're getting in, you're getting out, because there's not that 10 minutes that coach needs to rack his brain about whatever he planned to do that day or whatever it is, right? Find the paper that I wrote down the stuff on like Monday and now it's Thursday. Just efficiently getting in. The kids know what's coming. You know, a lot of times it felt like practice scripts to me, right? We always talk about making practice shells and you can kind of move some things around, but basically Monday practice is always Monday practice. And it felt the exact same way to me.
It's flipped actually, because it'll be Monday practice will be next week's Wednesday practice, and then the following week's Monday practice because of the 3-day structure. But yes.
But the kids kind of knew what to show up and expect, right? They weren't coming in and being introduced to some wild workout that we had to waste 20 minutes to explain the basics of, like, here's the fundamentals of this brand new workout you've never seen before. No, we didn't do that, right? You get that out of the way on your max day. You come in, you see where they're at, and then we just go to work. And they've seen it. Of course, we, just like you said, we started with 4 or 5. We built up to that like 10. And then you get the straggler comes in at week 8, and you're like, I've got to get your maxes. I got to figure out where you're at, right? And so you kind of have to deal with some of that, but you're going to deal with that no matter what if you have a successful program. So,
and then by also, the way, we've now developed. Chris developed last year the on-ramp program.
The on-ramp, right? So
that's what they don't jump right. That kid who rolls in at week 8. Here, you're going to do this for the next 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks you'll be like when basketball season ends, and all those kids come in.
Yep.
They're on the on-ramp program, and then they're ready to just jump right in wherever we're at. It's designed to get you back to wherever we're at.
My last point here is just the kids.
Which you don't have, by the way, if you're sitting there writing up on the whiteboard. Your kids are just rolling in and being like, I'll do, like, that. Here's another thing. What do you see kids do? You probably saw tons of kids do it. They get in a group of 3. Let's say they're doing squats. One of them's got a 230 max. One of them's got a 270 max. One of them's got a 315 max. What do? Put 50% on the bar. How much is 50%? Somehow, magically,
we all have the same 50%.
Same weight across the board.
It's either the lowest or the highest.
Yeah. One kid's pinned to the ground, or one kid's just bouncing up and down. And because you know the program, because it's written down, and these percentages are not random. These reps are not random. You go, I don't think that's right. I haven't seen y'all change weight in 3 guys. It's impossible.
The kids love the discipline, right? And we see that in football anyway. Side story, we did our freshman season just ended, and so I had some face-to-face time with the players and just did like the military does an AAR, after action review, exit interview, if you will. And the biggest thing they all said was they wanted me to be meaner. Like, you need to be more of a disciplinarian. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, we have that guy on the team. Do I really have to do that too? But kids love the discipline, man. They want the guy that shows up and is jacking around. They want him to be punished. And if they happen to be that guy that day, they think that they should be punished. So kids love the discipline. And that's what this builds, is that what you're talking about, the discipline of, we are going to change the weights every time, right? We know we're going to get in the group that we have to do it the least, because hopefully we can get a couple kids that are about the same.
And you have to hold them accountable for it.
Yes, and they want to be held accountable, and they'll do it themselves too, right? A lot of us, they'll do it themselves.
Once you establish the accountability with a leadership group, they will hold others accountable. Because if I'm going to hold myself accountable, I'm going to hold somebody else accountable. You know that from the military. Like, once if you have, I mean, that's a military. That to me is a military mentality of like, look, bro, we're going into some serious stuff here. You're not going to screw around, because it's going to come back on me. Right. Like, if I'm in the weight room and I've sunk 6 months into getting stronger, and I know that I'm going to be depending on you, you're going to change the weight. Like, you're not the one that's going to take this away from me. the whole thing of having a plan is like, it's like going to practice without a practice plan.
Yeah,
Like kids, I'll tell you one thing that kids, you talk about being a disciplinarian. Kids don't mind wasting time in algebra class because they really don't give a crap. Like if you lock 25 kids or 50 kids or whatever class sizes are now
a
in
lot.
an algebra classroom, and they just go nuts, but they all get A's. Everybody's cool. Nobody minds. But like, I'm playing football because I want to play football and I want to win games. And if practice is a waste of time, that's why we're doing the 90 minute. That's why I love the 90-minute practice plan. You can't waste time. There's no time to waste. Everything that you do, kids love. I here's another thing about the programming being, for example, the programming is not as repetitive as it may sound, but we do, let's say, front squat, box squat, back squat, so 3 different variations of squat.
Yeah,
If you would take the things that we teach in that program, and Chris has put together videos on it, and you teach, and you're constantly teaching, just like a play, how to squat, how to bench, how to do it right, how to do it better, how to get stronger. I'm talking to these kids about technique all the time. Um, they will be more invested in the lifts. If they're just in there bouncing up and down, seeing no progress because they're not doing the right weights and they're doing random stuff, then yeah, you get bored or whatever.
yeah,
It's just like any drill. I run the same. You come to a practice. You come to a practice one day, you're going to see me with the offensive line doing a drill. And you come next week, and I'm going to be doing the same drill. And the next week, I'm going to be doing the same drill if you don't have the sound on. If you turn the sound on, every single one of them is different. And that's part of coaching. You don't just put it up on a board and walk away. You go in there and you coach the guys in the weight room. It's not a set and forget.
right.
It'll work, but it won't work as well as it should.
So last question here, and I know that we've talked to Joe Daniel football a lot and some of the content, but that's what the last question is. So what is that content of a successful weight room program? Whether it be yours, which was where we're going to go with this mainly, or whatever you're trying to get into. What does that content look like?
Yeah, no matter. I don't. We have a great program. One of my core principles is hire experts. Um, and that goes back to Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours to be an expert. We simply don't have the amount of time that we think we do. And I want to be an expert in coaching football. Specifically, I'm not a quarterback expert, but defensively, I'm pretty high up there. And by the way, I get a lot more hours than most people,
Right.
because this is my living. But offensive line wise, I'm an expert. Defensively, I'm an expert. Offensive play design, offensive play calling, offensive, those types of things. But defensively, for sure, those are where my expertise is. It's honestly not in quarterback coaching, which is where everybody else thinks they're an expert. But I look at that 10,000 hours and I go, man, that's, I did the breakdown of the numbers and stuff, and it was like 10 years or something like that. Forget how long it was, but I don't have time to be an expert in speed training and an expert in weight training. And by the way, the hours that I spend being trained, because I do compete in weightlifting, and I may spend, depending on the year, 10, 12 hours a week in the weight room. That doesn't count. That's somebody else training me. That's not me getting expertise in training. I have lifted weights a lot, but that doesn't count towards my hours of expertise of programming and running a weight room and organizing a weight program. So one of my principles is to hire experts. One of the coaches here has been really, really successful. We watched his weight program one time, and we were like, not very. We know that we knew him. We knew his background was in strength training. We're like, not very good. Like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, we hired this guy. Comes all the way from Richmond. Kids think that this is a rural school.
All the way.
Kids think he must be really smart because he comes from the big city, and they bought into him. And I just let it go. Like, that's not the approach to take, but you understand bringing in an expert. Uh, he doesn't do that anymore, I'm pretty sure, by the way. The the thing for me was I'm not going to be a 10,000 hours speed coach or strength coach. And I think that there's guys out there who I get a lot of people who are like, Coach, why isn't there speed in the JDFE weight room? It's because he's a weight room coach.
Right.
Dale didn't design my Dale Basquette didn't design the strength program. And sure as heck, I'm not going to go. You think I'm going to go to Bill Belichick and be like, hey, can you write me a speed program and a strength program? No, if I get Bill Belichick, I'm going to go into program organization. I'm not even going to ask scheme. I might ask some defensive stuff, but I'm going to ask about how to organize a program. Like that, experts. NFL head coaches hire great coordinators. I think it was one of the things Deion Sanders has done fantastically is stick to the things that he's really good at and hire experts to do some of the other stuff. So I one of my principles is hire experts. And so I went to Chris Lawyer, who was my weightlifting coach. And this was not right away. This was after I'd been lifting with him. I've been on his programming for I do Olympic weightlifting. So I've been on his programming for a couple of years and was kind of like, hey, I'm the strength coach. Well, he already knew this. I'm the strength coach at our high school, and can it be done better? And it was kind of one of those things that he knew. He was waiting on me to ask, when are you going to figure this out? And I was like, okay. We got together, we put this program together. And Chris designed the program in 3 phases, essentially. Each workout is, and you've run it, each workout has 3 phases to it. It has an explosive phase, explosive lift, let's say, a strength lift, and then accessory work, which is centered around injury prevention, balancing out, tendon strong, balancing out hamstrings, all that sort of stuff. So a typical workout might be, for example, a power clean, a squat variation, and then, whatever your accessory work is, hamstrings and whatever else, hamstring curls type stuff. And the formula is, and this came from an interview I did with Chris, the formula is ultimately what we need on the football field is power. It's not strength. That's why we don't deadlift. It's a slow plodding movement. It's not going to be the end of your program if you deadlift. Chris has even helped guys who just insisted on it, like how to incorporate it. Understand that Chris is a Olympic weightlifting coach. He's a strongman coach, and he's a powerlifting coach. He doesn't hate deadlifting. He mostly when he does it himself, he's mostly picking up a car or a tire axle or something random like that, because he competes in strongman for the most part now. I thankfully am an awful deadlifter, and so most of our close to deadlifting is snatch pulls, which we do as an explosive exercise. And the formula is explosiveness plus strength equals power. What you need is power. And so if you do too much strength and not enough explosiveness, you become unbalanced. If you do too much, but you're never going to, if you do too much explosiveness and not enough power, so all you're doing is 95-pound hang cleans all day. I've seen those programs too. You're not getting the strength aspect of it. So if you go all the way one way or the other, you're never going to get as much of that ultimate goal, which is power. And then the other thing is, without proper program design, you're not going to be able to balance out and get the injury prevention. We had we had a 73% increase across the board in the measured lifts, which were power clean. I believe we measured squat, power clean, and bench press when we did that. Those were the ones we paid attention to. But 73%, and that was, by the way, that was not like a brand new program. I was the strength trainer the year before. I ain't bad. Chris was the strength trainer the following year, and the programmer. I was still the strength trainer, but he wrote the program. We got a 73% increase on those kids for anybody who was 80% or more in the weight room. That was the kids we tracked, and it was that, like, and by the way, we went from 4 and 6 to 8 and 2, and 8 and 4, 8 and 4. 7-3 regular season, won a playoff game, lost a playoff game, so 8 and 4. And the following season, 10 and 2. We were already fast, but we were not big enough, and it changed quickly. It changed very quickly. Um, Proper program design has an end in mind, but it builds that strength plus explosiveness equals power, and then it includes the injury prevention aspect. We saw a huge drop in I hate to say it because we have to. Well, hell, we didn't run this. I wasn't the strength coach this year, so it doesn't, it's irrelevant to us now. We saw a massive drop in. We didn't have knee injuries. Not like you're never going to eliminate these things. Huge drop in knee injuries, huge drop in shoulder injuries, huge drop in pulled muscle. We didn't have things like pulled muscles, pulled hamstrings, right? It just didn't happen. Huge drop in concussions because Chris built in things that would limit concussion, help with building up the neck traps, that area of the body. And I don't know all the thought process behind it, but like limited, we had fewer concussions. The second year we started the season with 27 kids. We finished the season with 27 healthy kids. A couple of them here and there missed a game, but that final game of the year, we had 27 of those, the exact same 27 were there. And I credit a big part of that to the weight room. And it's just, if you have a program that's designed that way, that's fantastic. And most of them are.
Yeah, the injury prevention is a big one to me. Obviously, living with a physical therapist, we see a lot of ridiculous injuries that are overuse.
You can't just be having your football players constantly parading into our office and be like, everything's fine. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think what's really nice about marrying someone in the medical profession is that when they hang around on the sidelines, they aren't there. There's the doctor you send your kids to, and it's always 2 weeks. Like, oh, got a hangnail out for 2 weeks, right? And so you stop sending kids to the doctor because they're just going to give them a 2-week pass anyway. So when you have a medical professional on the sideline, she's like, nope, can definitely go back in. We'll tape this, or this one's out for the game. You trust that, and then we'll check it out tomorrow. Anyway, yeah. So it's pretty awesome to have that, to have access to that. Marry a doctor. That's what I'm trying to say to everyone out there. If you're a football coach, marry a doctor. But the injury prevention is big time because I don't want to see those kids get hurt. I don't want to see them miss time. And my wife has looked at. She went to half the camps I did this summer over at Tulsa and everything else, right? Like, and we see these things that are unnecessary injuries. She has players that come in her office now that I've coached before, and they're constantly hurt all the time. And it's not, there's that injury-prone genetics or whatever people believe in. It's not that, because
injury-prone is not no.
Listen, where I live, kids rodeo. They jump on stupid giant animals that are very angry, and they ride them, and then they jump off, and they don't get hurt doing that, right? They run track, they power lift, they do all this other stuff, and they don't get hurt doing that. So I'm not saying that football isn't the cause of some of these. Obviously it is, but anyway,
game, yeah,
it is a physical game. But there's things
you're never going to eliminate all of it, but yeah,
no, not at all. Yeah, man, I love the program and what it helped us do too. I don't know numbers. I wish that I had tracked more numbers at Stillwell before and after we installed the system. Participation was pretty low. It was, like you said, it was that 3 kids in the weight room, 4 kids in the weight room. Oh, we got 8 today, 4 tomorrow. And so we didn't see the jumping numbers like the 73%. But it's because those 4 kids weren't even always the same kids. And it was a culture thing. But I
started with a handful of linemen.
Yep.
And that's okay. We'll get there.
Another big aspect of it, and we talked earlier about mental toughness. Like the percentages in the JDFB weight room program weren't. I didn't feel like they were for the faint of heart. Like you talked about needing, it's kind of what Sam says at the clinic right now, right? You're going to come in here and you're going to do your work. If you could get the same thing going and running stairs in the gym, then just go run stairs in the gym. Like, why would you come in here and squat low weights? And so Um, yeah. Anyway, all the things we talked about, your program obviously gives, and I feel like it is a very successful program. So that's kind of that is my status quo for successful programs moving forward.
It's and again, it's not the only one that's out there, but the chances are you don't have a strength expert. Chances are, and by the way, I don't have any um again, don't underestimate the fact that if a guy is coaching the kids at Alabama or Texas or Georgia, I don't know who the strength coaches are at all. A lot of those programs are trash too. They're working with the best of the best of the best. And a lot of them are hype guys and whatever. And um it, those aren't necessarily the programs, even if they are great programs for those guys. And I mention those schools just because they're big schools, not because I know anything about their strength program.
Right.
But a lot of those big schools have crappy strength programs. But luckily they have phenomenal athletes.
Yeah.
And either way, what they're doing is probably not appropriate for your guys, or requires an incredible amount of customization and tweaking and programming that most of us don't have time for. The thing about our programming is it is essentially one size fits all, 24-week program with the on-ramp program, so that new guys coming in, we get you caught up to speed, get you back into the mainstream real quick, 2 weeks. And it goes all through the, in season, off season. And you'd have to talk to Chris. Chris and Dale are the same, by the way. I know you've never met Chris, but Dale's the
I've
same.
not. I've not.
Someday. They're the same. They're different, but they're the same because they have an understanding of their craft and an expertise that is so far above a regular, just a regular football coach who thinks he knows about how to train somebody, or a track coach who thinks he knows how to do a weight room program and thinks he knows how to do this and that. And it's like they have thought about these things. Like, this is where the 10,000 hours thing comes in and beyond, because both of them are light years beyond this. This is what they've done for a living for decades. Chris, I think, is 25 years in strength training. Dale is 40. How old am I? Dale is 46 years now, I think, into speed training. And even before that, I think he was a track coach. I'll tell you, it's not like that was when he started doing football. They've thought about these things in a way that we just don't even have time to think about it in that way. And they have, and they've done research. They're both like super up to date on, research studies, what's out there in the field, like what other people are doing. They're not so set in their ways that if somebody else comes up with something new, they're not doing the exact same thing they were doing 10 years ago. They're not doing the exact same thing they were doing 20 years ago. They're not doing the exact same thing they were doing 30 years ago. But at the same time, the outside person probably wouldn't notice a lot of the differences because they hit on something that worked and they're just tweaking and adjusting and evolving. But man, they talk on a level that sometimes you got to slow them down and be like, "Hey, man, talk to me like I'm 5."
Yeah.
So they are incredibly similar, and they both say the exact same thing. I can't write your speed program. Chris will tell you I can't write your speed. He's like, I can. I will, but I shouldn't. And Dale will say the same thing. Dale will say the same thing. I've got a weight room guy if you want to talk to him. Right. And we've who we're talking about is Dale's got a weight room guy if you're interested. And I'm good, but he's not going to sit there and be like, let me show you how to, Dale, the speed coach, is not going to say, let me write up a weight room workout to make you faster. And that's what you would expect, right? That's what most people out there think is I'm going to get my speed guy, my strength guy, my strength and conditioning guy, right? That's what he's called.
Right.
He's the strength and there's no such thing as a speed guy. We hire a strength and conditioning guy. Well, I've got a strength expert and a speed expert. who will tell you that it shouldn't be the same guy. And I doubt that your high school has the budget to hire two. That's
Right.
where we come in. Athletic speed and movement, JDFB weight room.
Having said that, I think we've checked all the boxes, so we can start closing out of here.
Oh, JDFB weight room is joeDanielFootball.com/weight room.
There you go.
Yeah.
You said it's opening up. It should be open when this comes out. It'll be open for, what is it, 5, 8, 12 days?
Yep, it'll close up on Tuesday the 14th. So it's going to open up yesterday as this is coming out, Wednesday the 8th. Closes up on Tuesday the 14th. And it will open again, but it will be 2024.
Yeah.
Early 2024, but not, I don't know the dates.
Getting ready for spring ball / summer pride, right?
Yeah, we'll do sometime in the spring ball time, but and you can still get in if you're listening to this. Then it's designed to where, really it's designed in 6-week increments. You could jump on at any of those, but also it includes the on-ramp program. So if you're hearing this and you're trying to get into it at such and such a point, that's why you should just buy it now if you're listening to this at time. Because if you let's say you don't have 24 weeks, let's say you don't start until, I know coaches said we don't start until March. Cool. Take the day. So this is what you would do with the 24-week program. You take the day that you're going to start practice, count backwards weeks until the day that you're going to start. Let's say that that's 14 weeks back. You're going to start on week, if you go 14 weeks back, you're going to go 2 weeks of on ramp, and then you're going to start on week 12, and you're going to do the last 12 weeks. It's not rocket science,
right?
How to do that, and then you're going to have the in-season program, which is 2 days a week and takes about 30 to 45 minutes to do. JoeDanielFootball.com/weight room. It's just the best. It's the best strength training program I've ever run across. You can do. I've done most of them. Wendler 531. Cool. It's great. It's a heavily powerlifting based program. It is a powerlifting program that Wendler then adapted by throwing power cleans into it. But great program, linear, doesn't have the thought process in it that this does. Simple. Yep. It's a good program. You're not going to get as much out of it. That's the simple.
So if you're interested in the JDFB weight room, like he said, joeDanielFootball.com/weight room. If you've never been to Joe Daniel Football and that's your first time visiting, just jump over to the regular site and check that out over at join.joedanielfootball.com. Put in your email, get access for $1. It gives you seven days of access to the full onslaught of programs there, depending on what level you decide to jump in at. 4 defensive packages there: 4-3, 4-2-5, the 3-3 stack, and 3-4. Those can all be ran as one system. I am now at a school that runs multi-front. I know a lot of them that do try to run multi-front because you just don't know what you'll need from week to week. And maybe you want to be blitz happy one week, and maybe you want to run base one week, and so you can just switch around. But all of those are, terminology-wise, are all in one system, so you can go back and forth. The Pistol Power offensive system is there, so if you're looking to find a new offensive package, you're a new coach, you just need to understand football. That's the biggest thing I took from going through all of Joe Daniel Football was it taught me how to coach every position. And now there's people who are like, Coach, you literally coach every position on defense. You're right, because I went through JDFB and I learned how to coach every single position on the defense, and I'm working the offense. Wide receivers are such divas, and it's always going to be my Achilles heel. But Pistol Power offense is over there, so you can go through and check out the offense. Even if you want to run what your high school coach ran, you can adapt the Pistol Power offense to whatever that was. But now you have a full system. You have blocking schemes you can install. You have pass routes you can install. You got it's a perfect system. Chalkboard forums, go in there, ask your questions. Somebody will get back to you. Joe always answers the questions there. Chalk Talks are about to be they're weekly now. We're in season. As we get into December, they will shut down, and then we'll jump back in January and be bi-weekly for the off season. And then game film analysis. Even though it's week 10, it's for most or going into playoffs, it's still a great time to do some self-analysis. It's a great time to, maybe it's time to get ready for the big game I've talked to other guys that they play a rival every year in the playoffs. It seems like they've built a rivalry out of a playoff game because their districts align that way. So it's a great chance to let somebody else check out your film, get that third eye, and really correct little things that you may not see because you're just too close.